Planning Commission for Thursday, February 27th, 2025 will please come to order. I'd like to invite each of you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be followed by our invocation from Mr. Steve Rollins. His name went right out of my head, but forgive me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Oh, Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us to our destination tonight. We pray that the Planning Commission will do what they have been appointed to do. We pray that we would respect each other's opinion during this deliberation of our meeting business. We pray that we would do everything that's pleasing in your sight, and that once we're done here tonight, we pray that everyone would have traveling mercy back to their destination. We bring this prayer to you in the precious name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Rollins. Ladies and gentlemen, by way of introduction, to my immediate left is Dr. Carol Horton, representing the Port Royal District. I'm Bob Schwartz, representing the Bowling Green District. To my immediate right is Mr. Richard Williams. Names are going out of my head. Representing Western Carolina. To his immediate right is Mr. Steve Rollins, representing Mattaponi. Mr. Young, representing Reedy Church, could not be with us tonight. And of course, we do have a vacancy from Madison, yes. So with that, we'll move to item 3, or I'm sorry, we have Mr. Max Halavin, representing the County Attorney's Office, Mr. Craig Pennington, our County Planner, Mr. Brad Robinson, our Zoning Administrator, and Mr. Leon Hughes, our Director of Planning. We are online via IT, conducted by Ms. Priscilla Voigt, and we thank her for her attention. Ladies and gentlemen, on the commission, item 3 is approval of the minutes from our January 23rd, 2025. Have you had an occasion to review the minutes, and are there any additions or corrections? There being no additions or corrections, is there a motion?
Chair, I move that we accept the minutes from the last communication.
And I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Rollins, seconded by Mr. Williams for approval of the minutes as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Public hearings. Mr. Pennington, if you would be so kind as to read the protocol for the public hearings this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The purpose of a public hearing is for the Caroline County Planning Commission to listen carefully to the verbal expression and position and opinion from citizens of Caroline County. Public hearings are not question and answer sessions or debates, and all statements should be addressed to the chair. When members of the public offer comment, they need to clearly state their name and voting district prior to making their comments. Applicants or representatives of the applicant will be allowed 15 minutes to introduce information regarding the matter advertised for public hearing. All comments are to be pertinent to the issue being considered. Persons speaking at public hearings are respectfully requested to keep comments brief, not to exceed 3 minutes, and to address only those issues pertinent to the matters advertised for public hearing. After the public hearing has been closed, the applicant or representatives of the applicant will be allowed 10 minutes to address any issues identified by the public.
Thank you, sir. Our next item is item 4A, RZ 03-2024, Carmel Church Investments LLC, Wilton Acquisition LLC applicant. Mr. Pennington.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Your first item under unfinished business tonight is RZ 03-2024, Belmont Villas Age Restricted Community. After approval of the project at the October 24th, 2024 PC meeting, the applicant has revised the GDP to propose 72 age-restricted townhouse units from the original design of 61 units. The Planning Commission previously reviewed and recommended approval of this project. The revised GDP utilizes a smaller product that the builder feels will be more compatible with the age-restricted market. The remainder of the project remains the same with a community pavilion. Sorry, my clicker wasn't working. Sorry. There we go. The remainder of the project remains the same with a community pavilion and dog park for recreation and a connecting trail and sidewalk throughout the neighborhood. And these are the revised architecturals with the smaller building footprint. And that concludes the presentation. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Commissioners, any questions of Mr. Pennington at this time? There being none.
I have.
Yes, sir.
I think somewhere in the documentation I was reading from the VDOT, was there somewhere in there that there was some information that wasn't received?
VDOT provided comments on the resubmission, and the engineer has supplied a new GDP to address all the comments, which is currently still under review by VDOT. However, the project will have to meet all VDOT standards for a public road for Colonel Armistead Drive.
And I believe VDOT is going to review that towards the end phase.
They're currently reviewing it now, and they should have comments by the end of the month. Should this project go into the board, all those comments would be addressed prior to going to the board.
Thank you, sir. Anything else? I see Mr. Wilton is present, but would he care to speak?
Yes, sir. I just a couple of things for the record. My name is Henry Wilton, and I was here about 4 months ago, and you were nice enough to go ahead and approve the plan for 62 units. The unit that was actually attached is the same unit that we're doing. The layout was the part that was wrong. The layout, the engineer used a 30-foot product, which was a single-story product. But we've proffered, and according to that plan, we have a two-story product, and we've always had that two-story product attached to the plan. So we didn't change the unit that we had taken through the Planning Commission earlier. It's just the layout changed. So we still have the 24 and 28-foot units. They're between 1,600 and 1,900 square feet, so they're not small units. They're two-story units where, for some reason, the engineer had the layout here. Now, I have a short presentation if you'd like, if you'd like for me to go through it.
For clarity's sake, it may be best to put it on record, sir.
Okay, all right. Again, we're here because the layout shows 72 units of what we planned for originally, which was, again, the 24 and 28-foot units. That is basically what the market is in this type of product, especially if you go to the two-story. It's obviously first floor masters, and then two units upstairs, two bedrooms upstairs, along with a bathroom in case somebody comes and visits. And then part of it's open, where you have a two-story foyer and living areas, and that's the way it's designed. Again, these are two-story and one car garage. Adjacent property is office, which currently it's some office that has some medical offices with it, which is helpful. In fact, I got my COVID shot there, so I know that it works. When we go ahead and put in Colonel Armistead, that road, that will open the development for the commercial that actually fronts on the main road. And then that'll start the retail development. We also have to go ahead and connect to Traverse when that's built, and we're bonding that connection. Colonel Armistead Road is a public road, which we had a discussion of before. Again, the units are between 1,600 and 1,900 square feet. It's the same layout, the same amenities, a dog park, a pavilion with a fireplace, walking path around the BMP, which is fenced with black aluminum fencing. The density now is is 72, so the density on this goes from 6.1 units per acre to 7.2 units per the acre, but still within the 10 units per acre that's allowed under the zoning. We redid our traffic analysis, and that's been reviewed. VDOT will come in, but we got back a good review from the actual person that reviewed it. And the traffic can be handled by the existing roadway according to the report that I have. As far as that's concerned, I'd be happy to take any questions. Again, I'm sorry that I had that slight hiccup, but I think 72 units, since there are no other age-restricted projects in that area, even though obviously there's a lot of development that's going on, this is the only one I know about. So having another 11 units will help, basically capture another 11 couples that would like to stay in the area. So I think it's a win-win for all of us. So I'll be happy to take any questions.
Did I understand you correctly that on the second floor, there will be 2 bedrooms, a bath, a foyer, and a living area?
Well, no. It's open. It's open. All of them have to give it when you come in. Your area where your living area is a 2-story area, so it's open. So the entire second floor isn't totally developed. Part of it is open to give you like a 2-story living area. So it just makes it feel more open. You still have room for the 2 bedrooms and the bath upstairs, but again, it's open to give you a 2-story feel to it.
You're saying like a cathedral ceiling?
Yes, ma'am.
In the living room?
Yes, ma'am. In the living area, that's where they want it. Obviously, the kitchen is put underneath, underneath the bedroom areas and stuff, where you don't want, you don't really need that expansive area, but it makes it feel larger, even though the base floor is over 1,100 square feet, so it's not small. So that's just the first floor.
Okay. I'm envisioning like a loft area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That similar type of, okay.
And there's still 1 bedroom, 1 bath on the first floor?
Yes, ma'am. All of them have the primary bedroom and bath on the first floor. And again, 2 bedrooms, which you can, in a bathroom in between, which you can use. A lot of people just use them for storage. That's what my parents did. Both those rooms were used for storage.
So each unit is losing about 800 to 900 square feet. So is that just a little bit coming off of each room? Since you're saying there's still the same amount of rooms?
There are 3 bedrooms total. And then there's an open area that that again gives you that double foyer,
But it's the same amount of rooms as when you had 24 to 2,800 square feet.
Yes, ma'am. It's the same amount of rooms. And these
They're
are,
just going to be smaller now.
yeah, because again, that open area, I guess, ultimately you could go ahead and go over it. But today, to give them that, again, that feeling of just a little more space, they're using the cathedral ceilings now more. And again, you're not going to need but so many bedrooms because except for having a couple of people over, I mean, people can stay a little while, but certainly you can't have the kids come over and spend a long time at that location.
And
So,
I think that's built in.
yes, ma'am,
right?
it's part of the rule,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
regulation.
But just because the whole house is a little smaller, so each room is slightly smaller than what originally you had said.
Yeah, because again, because of the open area, we don't count that as floor area, but there's still, again, the 1,600 to 1,900 square feet, which for 2 people is plenty of square footage in my opinion.
Okay, thank
Yes, sir.
you.
Yeah, we just don't want our seniors, of which I'm in that generation, being stuffed into a shoebox and, put up on a shelf somewhere.
Yes, sir, and I'm there too. So I'm 72, so I qualify.
Okay. Commissioners, anything else at this point?
Yeah, so the The size of each unit, so you made it smaller by the width of the unit, or with the depth and the width both shortened?
Originally, when we were talking, the units were, again, the 30-foot units that were planned on that plan, and that was the problem. The unit I always talked about was this, again, 2 bedrooms upstairs, and again, the primary downstairs. And they've always been around the 16 to 1890. The 30-foot unit was larger. And again, actually, I don't know how they got that plan. But this plan that we're going with now, the 24 and the 28s are the standards of townhouse design and design for age restricted. Again, we're doing a project of a cool water, and they're 24 and 28 footers too. So that's kind of a standard size unit that we use.
Did the original have the cathedral ceiling?
Ma'am?
Did the original plans for the first houses you brought in to have the cathedral ceiling?
Yes, ma'am, but we just never talked about it. It was,
Okay.
I looked at the plan and I saw the 2, the 2 bedrooms with the bathroom in between. And I don't think I ever said there were 3. I never said there were 3 bedrooms upstairs. There were only 2. I just didn't focus in on, that nice 2-story area that, again, gives them a little bit, I think a nicer looking project.
So it states in the driveway there's space for 2 vehicles to park. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So the sidewalks that I see on the picture, so we saying that 2 vehicles would fit into that space without protruding over the sidewalk?
Yes, sir.
I know that was a statement that some vehicles are, like some trucks are like 20 foot long.
Right, we actually had to go ahead and extend, we had to redraft the project in order to, because that's going to be a new standard for y'all if it's not already. We had to go ahead and get to 21 feet because a 20-foot would leave a truck sitting out in the sidewalk area. So we corrected that.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, side-by-side parking or one in the garage and one in the driveway?
I think we have one in the garage and one in the driveway, and then we have some other additional parking area too. So at least 2 cars per unit is a minimum standard.
Right, I realize that. I just didn't want
Is that inclusive? That's not inclusive of the space in the garage. Are you saying that 2 cars would fit outside the garage, or 1 car in the garage and 1 car outside the garage? Are we saying 2 cars outside the garage?
So the zoning ordinance requires 2 parking spaces per dwelling, and this plan has 1 parking space in the garage and 1 parking space outside of the garage in the driveway.
And we have some other additional parking throughout the project too, for when people come by. Is there parking allowed on Colonel Armstead at all?
As of right now, the way Colonel Armstead is designed would be no parking on the sides there. But it could be designed for parking, would have to meet VDOT standards.
And as I understand it, there'll be no on-street parking. Is that correct? I read in,
That's what they were just mentioning.
yeah. Because we had some friends who lived in an age-restricted facility. And of course, the garage was used for an art studio and a model train station and everything else except for parking a vehicle. So they had to use the driveway solely for parking their vehicle. And when we visited, we had to park curbside. on a public street.
We have additional parking throughout the project, at both ends of it and in the middle, where if you look at it along the main road, and there are probably another 25, 30 extra parking spaces for when people come over and visit you.
Right.
We certainly know we need that.
Yeah, and I appreciate the accommodation for that. In reality, if you've got a foot of snow on the ground, you're gonna park. I'm just saying that there's no cure for everything.
No, sir.
And you just have to make do with what you have, I guess. So anyway, I don't have anything else unless any of the commissioners, and we'll certainly hold a public comment, public hearing on it, after which you will have an occasion to come back and respond if you wish.
Yes, sir. No problem. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll open the public hearing regarding this matter. Is there anyone who wishes to speak regarding this matter? Public hearing is now open. Anyone wishing to speak regarding RZ 03-2024 Belmont Villas? Please state your name and your voting district only, please.
Good evening, Chairman Schwartz, members of the Planning Commission. Mary Hodge, Bowling Green District. I don't have any plus or minus to say to this project, although I heard the earlier presentation on this, and see it was up again tonight. I just want to give a comment because I have an older sister and her husband that live in Virginia Heritage in South Point. It's a 55 and older community, and they would love to live in Caroline County to be closer to family. But I don't see where this would be amenable to their tastes. Where they live, they have a beautiful home. It's full master bedroom on the front on the living area with spare bedrooms and a full finished basement, as well as a 2-car garage. But there is a clubhouse in the area, and they're near a lot. They like to shop, go to Costco and all the other shopping areas. But in this area, there's nothing that holds any interest to someone in that area. Like, what are they going to do? Just stay at their homes? There's no stores. There's no really amenities that anybody would want to go to. And I just don't see what the draw would be in this area. I don't think they would like a trail. They're not outdoor people that would go to a fire pit and walk their dog in the area. So that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hodge. Anyone else wishing to speak? Anyone else wishing to speak regarding this matter? Final call. Anyone wishing to speak? Seeing no one coming forward, the public hearing is closed. Mr. Wilton,
Yes, sir.
if you'll recall, we tried getting some type of a clubhouse and we just couldn't wrangle it. The area across the street, the frontage road between Travers Way and Route 207, that is still designated for somewhat of a commercial development. Is that correct?
Yes, the area in front of this is all commercial and will remain commercial. The owners are here tonight, the Harts.
Yeah, I see they are.
Yeah. And we had discussed the issue about a clubhouse and so on. And basically, we're concentrating more on the availability to be able to stay here if you have children here and so on. And this would be the first step, because we're not obviously a Cedar Field or something like that, which we talked about. That's where my parents were, that offer a stepping type of situation where, you move in and then, you move up to let's say the big house where you maybe need more care and so on. And then there's food and so on. That's that step up here. We're at this step at this point for, let's say, the younger, still, mobile, individuals that are retired and want to be close to their family and so on, but they don't need the care yet. They would move into here if they wanted to go ahead and get long-term care. This is, again, more of a stepping stone. But one of the gentlemen that was on the commission before lived in exactly this, this step. And it seemed to fit what he needed. Obviously, if you need more services, it's a different, it's a different community that you'd be looking for. But this again is the only age-restricted area unit. The last units were built out probably 2 years ago. I think Maple Grove, I think it was. I forget the name of it, but so I think this step is needed for the people that want to go ahead and stay here with limited limited amenities and so on. But again, they're ambulatory and they don't need a lot of care as yet.
Right.
So,
The longest journey in the world begins with the first step. So,
yes, sir.
I appreciate it. Commissioners, you have anything further? Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any discussion? Yeah, we pretty much have been down this road quite a bit. Is there a motion regarding this matter?
I would like to make a motion to approve, whereas rezoning request RZ 03-2024 for Belmont Villas appears to be generally consistent with the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan and future land use maps, and whereas the public necessity, convenience, general welfare, and good zoning practices warrants the approval of the request, I recommend that RZ 03-2024 be forwarded to the Board of Supervisors with a recommendation of approval to the following proffers, of any, which there are none, correct?
There are proffers attached,
Okay,
with proffers as attached.
with proffers.
Is there a second? If not, I will second that motion. All those, any further discussion?
Well, the motion is already on the floor, Chairman, but I had some doubts, some rethought this after we made our first initial vote, but my concern was with the presentation with the information I got tonight was the fact that, we did want a clubhouse there for the seniors, and I kind of went along with the pavilion thing, but now that they've come back and made room for 12 additional families to be in the same area, but couldn't figure out how to get a clubhouse there for the seniors. I have a concern with that. And also the parking, I didn't understand until the night that the parking reflected a vehicle being in the garage and one on the street with no parking, or one prior to the sidewalk and no parking on the street, which means that a family that has two vehicles, one in the garage, one in the driveway, when a visitor came by to visit, there would be nowhere for that visitor to park because because they couldn't park on the street, and they would have to park away from whoever they're visiting and then walk to the residence. So that was my concern. And that's the reason I didn't make a motion to approve it tonight, but the motion is on the floor, but that's my concern.
And a motion and a second can always be withdrawn.
Okay.
So, yes, and I'll be quite honest with you, I share the same concerns. We tried like the Dickens to get us a clubhouse. We couldn't do it.
The garage is, the driveway is 21 feet long. That's correct, right? That's what I'm seeing on my plan.
Mr. Pennington, I think that's what we're seeing.
The driveway is 20 feet long, which is 2 feet longer than what the current requirement is.
So I guess it depends on the size of your vehicle. You might can squeeze two cars in without putting one in the garage, maybe.
Yeah, and I share the same concerns as Mr. Williams. I'll be quite honest with you. We're already reducing the amount of floor space a bit.
From 2,400 down to 16 to 19, correct?
Yeah, and I'm going to be quite honest with you. I'm going to withdraw my second.
How many, Mr. Pennington, how many of these units do we have for seniors in the county?
The only other age-restricted project in the county is Maple Grove, which has the exact same number of units that this project does of 72. And their amenities in that neighborhood is a pavilion, 10 by 10 pavilion, and a dog park.
So no clubhouse in that, okay. See, I mean, I have the concerns, the same concerns as you all. The only thing is, we do have a limited amount of these type of facilities in the county. And part of it might, the helpful part might be for people that have lived in the county to stay in the county, you know, to sell their home and stay in the county and live near family, because this county is very family oriented. So that's what I'm thinking in my mind.
So Mr. Pennington, is there any other interest from anyone? I mean, I don't know if that would be confidential information or not, but is there any interest anywhere else in the county for such residences?
There's a application in for rezoning for another age-restricted community in the Ladysmith area. And so it would require a rezoning of commercial property at the corner of Route 1 and Ladysmith Road into residential property that would have approximately 240 units. But again, that would require rezoning of commercial property at the corner of Route 1 and Ladysmith Road back to residential property.
Yeah, and even though we don't, I mean, these are small units, you're not going to get the real estate tax off of them, you know, that you would like. But at the same time, they're not going to be using school facilities, which is where the majority of your budget goes. So in that case, I will second the amendment. I mean, the motion.
Just one point of clarification. In Maplewood, are there any social amenities within the immediate area that,
There's the YMCA, but you would need to have a membership to that. Social areas,
the shopping centers are
The
on the other side, around Route 1 and everything?
correct. You would have to drive to the shopping center on the opposite side of Route 1. There would be no free space community areas that I'm aware of around the Maple Grove subdivision.
Because Mr. Weber lives in Maple Grove.
Correct.
All right. Commissioners, we have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion? There being no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Roll call vote. Dr. Horton.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Aye.
Mr. Williams, aye. And Mr. Rollins.
Nay.
All right. The vote is 3-1 in favor. This matter will be forwarded to the Board of Supervisors with a recommendation of approval.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilton. Thank you, folks. Y'all have a pleasant evening. Special exception 08-2024 Wildlife Rescue League Board of Directors owner applicant. Mr. Pennington.
Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Your second public hearing tonight is Wildlife Rescue League, SPEX 08-2025, tax map number 27-2-2. The applicant's requesting approval of a special exception permit for an animal hospital and veterinarian clinic pursuant to Article 4, Section 5.1 of the Caroline County zoning ordinance. The Wildlife Rescue League Board received a donation of property in Caroline County totaling 94.5 acres located on tax map parcel 27-2-2 on Edge Hill Academy Road. The applicant would like to utilize this parcel as a wildlife rehabilitation facility. The parcel is bounded on all sides by large parcels of at least 70 acres, zoned rural preservation, with the exception of a 530-acre Matamede parcel zoned PIRT. Two of the adjacent parcels contain dwellings, the closest of which is located approximately 2,850 feet away from the structure that's to be utilized. The subject parcel is located within a FEMA floodplain, which includes a portion of the property containing the existing dwelling to be used for the rehabilitation facility. Caroline County zoning ordinance does allow for residential structures to be built in the floodplain as long as the structure is flood-proofed according to the building code. The applicant proposes to utilize the existing structure for the rehabilitation of wildlife. Small animals such as squirrels, rabbits, or raccoons would be rehabilitated at the facility. Department of Wildlife Resources regulations require that nothing larger than a fawn may be provided care. State regulations require that larger wildlife species be taken to an appropriate licensed facility, and wildlife will be brought to the proposed facility at different times based on necessity. The applicant would have one full-time employee reside at the property, and other employees work at the facility based on necessity. Wildlife rehabilitation facilities are permitted by the Department of Wildlife Resources. Most rehabilitation facilities are operated out of single-family dwellings by private citizens. In order to obtain a wildlife rehabilitation permit, applicant must complete a 6-hour course, set up a safe rehabilitation space, and have an inspection of the space by Department of Wildlife Resources. Animals that have been fully rehabilitated must be released in the same location that they were picked up at, or if that space is deemed unsafe, they must be released in a similar environment within close proximity to the pickup location. Should an animal not be able to be rehabilitated, then the animal shall be euthanized and disposed of by burial or double bagged and disposed at a local landfill as prescribed by state regulations. DWR does permit the outside keeping of animals. Waste must be collected and disposed of properly in accordance with DWR regulations. Staff has provided a document in the staff report that contains all DWR regulations. In the future, the applicant would like to implement a phase 2 of the project. This would include the construction of a larger building to be utilized for animal care and as an education facility where the Wildlife Rescue League could provide opportunities for schools and community groups to learn about wildlife and wildlife care. The DWR issued permit addresses the display of rehabilitated animals that cannot be released back into the wild. This type of use would require an exhibitor's license along with the rehabilitation license issued by DWR. Should this special exception be approved, staff recommends the fencing around the education center for safety of all visitors. The 2030 comprehensive plan designates this area as agricultural preservation. Very little land is actually zoned agricultural preservation, with the predominant agricultural zoning in Caroline County being rural preservation. The subject property is zoned rural preservation, which permits an animal clinic and veterinary office as a special exception use. This use is consistent with the comprehensive plan with approval of a special exception permit. VDOT has provided comments that will be addressed during the site plan phase of the project, and the Virginia Department of Health has provided comments regarding the drain field and water usage at the property. Should the special exception be approved, these items will be addressed during the permitting phase of the project. The building official provided comments and questions regarding the primary use of the facility. After discussion with the applicant, the building use code will not change with the full-time resident in the structure. Any alterations to the structure will need to be permitted and be reviewed in accordance with the floodplain ordinance and use of flood-proof materials. Staff has offered the following conditions for the Planning Commission to consider or make adjustments to. 1, 2-wit be recorded in the circuit court within 30 days of approval. All local, state, and federal permits and licenses will be obtained prior to commencing operation. A copy of all DWR permits shall be provided to the Department of Planning and Community Development prior to commencing operation and when any change to the type of permit is made. No drop-off or pickup of animals shall occur between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. Animal waste shall be disposed of properly by double bagging and taken to a landfill or picked up by a waste management company in accordance with DWR regulations. No outdoor storage or keeping of animals shall be allowed. Any animals that require euthanization shall be disposed of according to DWR regulations. The applicant shall receive permitting or certification that the drain field is of sufficient size and condition to support all phases of the proposed use. The Phase 2 Education Center shall be fenced from neighboring properties. Signage shall be displayed noting the types of animals that this facility can receive for care and shall provide information on how to contact a facility that is licensed to care for an animal that this facility cannot accept. Care and treatment of the wildlife shall comply with all DWR regulations. A site plan shall be provided to the Department of Planning and Community Development for Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the project. The entrances shall meet all VDOT regulations for commercial entrances. Any animals kept for the Education Center in Phase 2 of the project shall be the same as the animals that the facility is licensed to care for by DWR. All education sessions must be by appointment only. No stop-in visits shall be allowed. And the applicant shall provide a report annually to the Department of Planning and Community Development that details the types of numbers of species rehabilitated at the facility and the number of species that had to be referred to other licensed facilities. This concludes the presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Pennington. Commissioners, you have any questions of Mr. Pennington at this time?
Yes, this backs up to the Manomede Data Center property.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay,
If you look at your screen, you can see the larger Matamede property
yeah.
that is to the west of the property.
Is this a 501c?
That'd be a question for the applicant.
Okay. You said something about nothing larger than a fawn, but what I was reading up here said nothing larger than a fox. They're
So-
close to the same size, but
So there's a different regulation in the DWR regulations for a fawn about the times of the year that you can accept it and the times of year you have to release it. Most facilities deal with animals no larger than a fox, and it depends on what the person that is operating in the facility is certified in as to which animals they can care for.
yeah. But is that paperwork going to say fox or fawn is my question.
Right now, there's no limitation on the types of animals that they can provide care for, so it would follow the state regulations.
Okay, are you recommending fox or fawn though?
We're not recommending any restriction on animals. It's up to the DWR state permit as to what they're allowed to care for.
All right, I'll go back to my paperwork and rephrase my question. And yeah, I think the rest is questions for the applicant, but I'm familiar with these facilities, so I may have more questions for you later. All right, thank you.
I have a question. So the building that's currently there, is that building flood proof already? Was it built during the time that it was required for it to be flood proof?
So the building official looked through the file, and it's unclear as to how the building was initially constructed. There was a violation for the house being built in the floodplain, and the follow-up from that time is not available in the file. However, from a site inspection, it appears as though the house has been raised and that there shouldn't be any issues with the floodplain. Any further permitting, the building official will have to review, and will make sure that everything meets the floodplain and flood-proofed ordinances. So any additional changes to the structure or the property, then will have to be reviewed at that time and approved in accordance with the code.
And all the burials will be done on that property?
It depends on how they dispose of the animals. You'll have to talk to the applicant on that. The state regulations say that a euthanized animal shall be buried at least 2 feet deep or double bagged and taken to a landfill is what the state regulations require.
I'm not sure if the Caroline landfill allows any animals. I don't think
They do.
They do, okay. I thought I saw a sign, no animal disposed.
And there would be no need for fencing at the current building?
The general public wouldn't be allowed at the current structure, and so no, there's no need for a fence at that time.
And And do we know where on the property for phase 2, would that be close to the existing building, or we don't know?
It is not. If you look at the plan that was provided, it does show a phase 2, and the phase 2 building is outside of the floodplain on the northern portion of the property.
And I guess my last question, so the 2030 comprehensive plan, which designates that area, or that's what they are proposing, that area be agricultural preservation. So because it's just a comprehensive plan, we would abide by the fact that it's now rural preservation, because on the agricultural preservation, it doesn't list for special exception for veterinarians or veterinary hospitals or clinics. So there's no place that I read that special exemption is grantable for agriculture preservation.
So the property is zoned rural preservation, which allows for the animal clinic and veterinary hospital. Agricultural preservation is for intense agricultural operations. So the comprehensive plan calling for this to be agricultural preservation, what that means is that they could have over 30,000 chickens, 5,000 cows, 2,000 horses. So agricultural preservation is for very intense agricultural use. With rural preservation, you're not allowed to have that many livestock or animals. And rural preservation is a agricultural designation in our zoning ordinance. So rural preservation is the agricultural zoning that most of the county uses.
Okay. Okay.
Can I get you to back up? Yeah, keep going back. You had some recommendations. Okay, stop. Okay. Is there another page of suggested conditions?
No, these are all the suggested conditions.
Okay. Can you back up one more? All right. Somewhere on these suggested conditions, I thought I saw something about a fox.
No, again, there's no condition regarding any animals that they could take in. The DWR licenses state what kind of animals that you can care for. And so you can be certified in chipmunks only, or chipmunks, squirrels, and rabbits, or turtles, snakes, and amphibians.
Yeah, I'm pretty familiar
Yeah,
with
so
that.
the state permit will guide as to what they can care for. So there's no limitation on animals that we saw necessary to put on the conditions.
Yeah, except for state regulations.
Correct.
Because I don't think we're in Virginia, we're allowed to rehabilitate coyotes or adult deer at this point.
You can rehabilitate other animals, larger animals, at certain facilities located in the state with certain certifications, but it wouldn't be
Yeah.
allowed here.
My understanding, yeah, in Virginia, we can't yet do coyotes or adult deer. I could be wrong, things change. All right, thank you.
Mr. Pennington, if the applicant or their employees sometime in the future obtain certification for larger animals, would that be permissible under the special exception?
The way I understand the DWR regulations and state regulations is that only 1 or 2 facilities in the state are permitted to take care of larger animals, and that's where all larger animals must go.
Okay, thank you.
Can you back up one more? Okay, and one more. And one more. I don't know. Maybe I need new glasses. One more. See, there it is on the right. Is it on the right up here? Small animals, nothing larger than a fox.
Yes.
That's
That's
what,
why I saw the word fox. And then you said fawn at one point.
because the state regulations allow for a fawn, the applicant what we understand is that nothing larger than a fox would be cared for at the facility.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pennington. Would the applicant care to be heard?
Yes, good evening.
evening.
My name is Tom Colucci, and I'm an attorney with Walsh, Colucci, Lubley, and Walsh from Arlington, Virginia. This young lady to my right is Beth Axelrod. Beth is the president of the organization and is far more knowledgeable than I am. I know Dr. Horton had a number of questions. She probably can answer them all. So I wanted to have the ability to be able to respond to your questions. In addition, we have watching, unfortunately, he couldn't be here tonight, the project engineer who prepared the CDP plan. Should you have any engineering type questions that we can't answer, we have him available to consult with to try to answer your questions. And I want to thank Mr. Pennington. He was extremely he was extremely helpful. He was very knowledgeable and very helpful. So I want to thank him for his efforts in helping us through the process. I would like to use our PowerPoint. Will this work with our PowerPoint? No, the other way. Okay. The other way. Oh, okay. All right. Perhaps I should wear my glasses. In any event, the Wildlife Rescue League, who are we? Okay, well, we're to respond to Dr. Horton's question, the league is a 501c3 not-for-profit organization. It was established over 40 years ago, so they have been very, very active in the community since that time. And their mission is to build relationships within the community, and they have established many relationships with the Fairfax Animal Services Department, Animal Welfare League of Arlington, among others. And so what are the programs? And as Mr. Pennington articulated, the mission of the league is to sort of save animals that may be at risk. They're either orphaned or injured, and they are rehabilitated. And then, as Mr. Pennington indicated, they're not kept or domesticated. They are, once they are rehabilitated, they're let back into their natural habitat. It could be where they were found, or if that isn't feasible because of other reasons, they have to be released into a similar habitat from that which they were found in. A little bit about the property, although Mr. Pennington did a very good job of explaining the property. It's a small house of about 1,500 square feet or so. And the house sits on 94.5 acres, although most of the activities that we're talking about and the application property, the SE, is about 13.5 acres. There's a picture of the house, although I think Mr. Pennington beat me to the punch. There's a picture of the pond, which is on site. And in terms of the need, Caroline County has no permitted wildlife rehabilitators. In the 6 counties that border Caroline, there are only 7 permitted wildlife rehabilitators. By contrast, for instance, in Fairfax, single county, there's 14 permitted wildlife rehabilitators. Also, and I don't know, Mr. Pennington was thoughtful enough to attach the DWR, the state agency that regulates all this, their regulations and their requirements. And I don't know if all of you had an opportunity to pour through those regulations, because they are quite extensive, and they're, in my view, they were quite rigorous. So I think if you have a condition, we don't have any objection. There's only one condition we have a problem with, by the way, which I want to discuss with you. But if you look through those regulations, you will see that the conditions for all these various activities that will be conducted are extremely stringent. And of course, the facility will be licensed by DWR, and obviously it would be our intent to comply with all of the regulations. And I do think they do periodic audits and inspections and the like. And obviously the county folks would be welcome to do that should they choose to do that as well. We think the facility will provide valuable services to Caroline County because there really aren't many rehabilitators. And there are some programs that the league has done with, for instance, elementary schools in the area in terms of field trips, I guess, for education on the wildlife of the area. And so forth. So there is that function as well. As was explained, there will be a full-time person living in the house who will be a rehabilitator, and obviously there will be other support to the extent that the volume is needed. I guess the one concern that we had is in the proposed conditions as recommended by staff. There's a condition that no animals be allowed to be, I won't say stored, occupy cages outdoors. And that kind of is contrary to the rehabilitation of certain types of animals. So we would request, even though we have absolutely no objections to any sort of condition that would make us subject to adhering to all of the DWR regulations, which, as I said, are mind-numbingly detailed, we would request that condition not be included, because there will be animals that are stored or caged, while they're in their process of being rehabilitated. So we would respectfully request that that condition be deleted from the recommended conditions. In any event, I have Beth here to answer any technical questions that you have, and we have our engineer on call who we can consult if you have any technical engineering questions that we're not able to address. And thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. You might want to bend that microphone down a little bit.
Yes,
Thank you.
or we can get a phone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Anything that you would like to add?
There is one thing I'd like to clarify. Most wildlife rehabilitation is done by in-home rehabilitators, where the state will permit us to rehabilitate in our own homes. Most people have a room or a basement caging in their backyards. We would be able to go to this house and rehab as at as an at-home rehabilitator. However, what we'd like to do is hire staff. We want a full-time person, possibly 2 in the future. We'd like to hire a vet at some point in the process, maybe in our year 2 of operation. And so depending on who we hire, we may or may not find somebody to actually physically live at the property. And so we wanted to operate this particular facility as more of a property with paid staff. And so we may not be able to identify a staff person to live at the property. And that's why we would like to have it commercially zoned. So I just wanted to clarify that. We're going to be looking for somebody with at least 5 to 7 years of experience that is able to rehabilitate all of the various species that the state allows. And so that person might be somebody that's already a Virginia permitted rehabber, or it might be somebody that's coming from out of state that would need to go through the Virginia rehabilitation process for the permit. But I know that the reference has been made several times to that somebody will be living there full time, and that's an unknown factor at this point. And that's why we're asking to have it commercially permitted versus just having somebody living there and rehabbing animals, because there wouldn't be a commercial permit required for that.
I have a couple of questions for you. Will you be doing birds?
We intend to do birds. We probably will not do raptors in year 1 or year 2, but we eventually intend to be permitted for raptors. We intend to do small mammals, larger mammals. And to answer your question, a fawn and a fox are comparable at some points. I think the largest species that can be permitted, can be rehabbed in Virginia would be a bobcat.
Okay.
So that's
why I didn't think we could rehab adult deer in Virginia.
you cannot, you're correct.
Yeah.
You cannot, you can only rehab fawns.
Adult coyotes, I don't think.
No coyotes. Coyotes are considered
No
a nuisance.
nuisance animal, no coyotes at all.
That's correct.
That's what I thought in Virginia.
Right.
And I mean, I'm very familiar with these facilities. Like, I have friends and family. One reason I think that they're needed is, people cannot survive without nature, and we are encroaching on animals. So we've got to figure out ways to live with them. It's just not about rehabbing animals. You're going to have an educational facility. So the generation growing up right now just needs to figure out how to live with them, because there's a lot of reports on social media now of people wake up and there's a fox sleeping on their porch, and people don't know about putting out food and stuff, and then then they see coyotes in their yard and things like that. There needs to be a lot more education in regard to this. So I like the idea, education, especially with the next generation coming along. I think they will be much more prepared than we are to deal with this right now. And only for a rehabber, it only takes a 6-hour course now, because the people I know who went through the course, it was weeks.
You're required to have 6 hours of credit, 6 credits. You start off, though, as an apprentice. Okay. So you have to apprentice for 2 years with an already existing Category 2B rehabilitator that's had experience. So once you apprentice for 2 years, you can then become a Category 2 rehabilitator without.
So it's more than 6 hours.
Oh, it's
That's
years.
right. I didn't think that.
You're trained for years.
Yeah, that didn't make
And then
sense.
to requalify, and you have to have, in addition to that, you have to have 6 hours to get your initial apprentice permit. But it's then a years-long process to become a fully permitted Class 2 wildlife rehabber.
And the second building that you hope to have is educational facility, correct?
Yes, I think that's going to be years down, maybe a 5 to 10 year.
But there could be some, like, if the schools invited you in. Or the
Schools
public.
invite us in. We do presentations out to do, yes,
So
we
you
would
can,
have
start that without a building.
without having the building.
Yeah.
And we do that in Fairfax County. We do multiple presentations every year for Boy Scouts. Our education committee is currently writing curriculum for the Prince William County schools. They have an environmental literacy program, And we're actually creating modules for them to display so their children in K through 12 can learn about animals, at that school age. So we do the exhibition animals. You have to, as Craig said, you have to have a special permit for that. And it's not per person. The permit, as I understand it, is per animal. So if we were to find an owl that was healthy but partially vision impaired and couldn't be released, we could have that particular bird permitted as an educational owl and then present that to schools. I currently have educational turtles. So, so we can take almost any species that's healthy and safe. We would not exhibit certain species. I wouldn't exhibit, or we would not exhibit a raccoon or a fox or any of the predator species, but, a possum potentially.
Okay, a couple more questions. So you're only asking zoning for about 13.8 acres, and the rest is going to remain in rural preservation, correct?
Correct. The house, we would be rehabbing in the house, and then we expect to have outdoor caging situated along a trailway that runs towards the north of the property, and we'll have, as when animals are sick or injured or babies, they have to be inside and be rehabilitated and treated inside. But as they get older and they're ready for release, then you want to put them outside on a temporary basis so they get acclimated to the climate and, being outdoors, and these cages will have small branches that they can learn to climb and things like that. So they're out in their natural habitat before you release them.
I agree, yes. Because the idea is to rehabilitate them to go back into nature, not to keep them.
Right.
So there does need to be outdoor caging, secure outdoor caging, but.
Correct. And it's got to be inspected by the Department of Wildlife Resources.
And my main thing is, I feel like we need to do something about this situation. I mean, we just approved more housing tonight. I mean, we need to be educated, and we need to do this for our children coming along, to teach them how to, because we're taking up earth space, and we need to teach them how to deal with the wildlife that they're going to come in contact with more and more. So thank you. I don't have any more questions. Some other commission members might.
I have some questions. Who does the euthanizations?
We will open as a Category 2B wildlife center initially, and we will not have a vet on site, possibly for the first few months. So we would need to have euthanasia done by a veterinarian that either came to the facility to euthanize, or we would take out to the facility to euthanize. We work very closely with a wildlife center called Blue Ridge, which is out in Clark County. And currently we have animals that are sick and looking like they would need to be euthanized. They typically go to Blue Ridge from our in-home.
That answered my second question. And then what is capacity for the building that you're looking to utilize? What do you envision as capacity?
Capacity throughout the year will probably be somewhere close to 500 animals, and that's not all at once.
Okay.
Those are animals that start coming in February and then continue to come in through the year until usually September, October, but they're also getting released. So there's no 500 animals at the property.
Just being rotated in and out.
They're rotated out. They go out to outdoor caging and then released. Birds most species have to go back to where they were found.
Right.
There are occasions where we may have to release an animal on the property. We would want to avoid doing that with raccoons and foxes just because they're predator species, and we don't want to release them where we're releasing our rabbits at the same time. But,
Sure.
And the property will only have so much capacity anyway. But there may be an occasion where we're releasing something on the property.
And I can see up in Fairfax and Arlington area where there's a much bigger demand for institutions like or places like this. I guess my question: Do you see this being something that'll like explode right away in Caroline County? Are there that many rehabilitated animals in the area.
Yeah, I don't think so, but we're in Northern, so we operate a wildlife helpline. We take calls from Northern Virginia and surrounding areas, but we're also getting calls from Richmond. We're also getting calls from Spotsylvania. There's a very, there's just not a lot of resources out here. So we're having people, if somebody calls us from Caroline County, they're having to travel, an hour to get an animal to rehab. I did talk to Lieutenant Heffler to see how much wildlife, what the resources are. And she said they have to either drive an animal to a different county, which they're not supposed to be doing, so they don't. They might have to wait for 8 hours for another rehabber to come from where they're located in Fredericksburg here, because, they've got animals at their own homes that they're taking care of. So, that animal is sitting for 8 hours without care, and the chances of it surviving are not going to be great. So I think eventually, as people realize that there's a resource here, calls will start to pick up. I think that there are animals out here that just aren't getting treated when they're injured or they're sick. And I think a lot of people possibly, if there's not a lot of wildlife education in the county and not a big county push, to have animal control officers trained in wildlife, then people don't have anywhere to call. So there may be a need that's really not even known yet.
Okay. Thanks for educating me. But so the way I'm understanding is that because you don't have a vet there, you would be getting wildlife from other. Let's say if an injured wildlife got taken to an animal hospital and got fixed up, patched up, or whatever, they would call you and refer to bring a animal to you to rehab, right? So on the onset, you wouldn't have anybody there that's going to be stitching or whatever for an injured animal. They would just be taking care of them after somebody did that correction to their injury.
Some injuries we can treat there without a vet. A lot of wildlife rehabilitators, that somebody that we hire that's trained, that has 7 years of experience, would understand how to set a broken leg on a duck, for example. If a turtle gets hit by a lawnmower, I do this at my house. I can take antibiotic cream and Manuka honey and rub it on the shell, and eventually that shell will start to heal. So there are certain injuries we can treat. What we can't do without a vet is euthanize. And so we would be taking animals out to be euthanized, or we might get lucky and find a vet that's willing to come to the center. But we do plan in the future, not that far in the future, to hire a vet that will be there on staff and available. So, so that component will be handled by the vet.
And so are you telling us also tonight that if you aren't able to cage the animals outside, that you wouldn't be able to function at that location?
That's correct. That's correct. The animals have to go back outside. Some of the mammal species have to go back outside. If we were to have an injured raccoon or an orphaned raccoon, they need to go to a certain age. At a certain age, they need to be outside so they can get acclimated. Squirrels, we use catios, and we can put a squirrel out, when they get to be about 3 months. We can put a litter of squirrels out in a catio. They can learn to climb, not because when they're younger, they're confined to a much smaller cage in the house. So they need to be outdoors, learn to climb. And then eventually you would do a soft release. After they've gotten acclimated, you would open the door and they would be able to go out. Sometimes they'll come back for a little while, a couple days, a week, and then eventually you won't see them anymore. So it's very important for the rehabilitation process to have those animals placed outside where they're secure, where they're safe, but can be out in that element.
Okay.
Ms. Axelrod, I want to commend you and your organization for the mission. I love it. That being said, some animals do have to react or have to acclimate to the wild again. And the outdoor cages appear to be a viable way to do that. How would the animals be secured in an exterior cage, especially the climbers, the raccoons, the squirrels, and so forth? At least initially, to keep them from just flying the coop, so to speak.
They're usually large wooden cages and the requirements are all in the permit conditions. We have to give them a certain amount of space to be able to live in, but they're secure, they're locked. They have, you can put like a not chicken wire, but hardware cloth on the bottom so they can't dig out.
Okay.
So you have to put them in very secure cages, but because we don't want them to get out.
Right. I was wondering how you contained them to begin.
Oh yeah, they're locked up.
Of course.
Yes, sir.
Look at those regulations, Craig, and attached, the DWR regulations that were attached. There's probably about 10 pages of cage specifications, which lists the type of animal, and then it lists the width and the height and the depth of the cage and what the materials can be. So those are all, they're all specified, with sort of minimum requirements for the cages.
And they
Thank
have
you,
to be
Mr.
inspected
Colucci.
by Department of Wildlife Resources before we can open.
Right. Initially, when you open, do you have someone in mind that is going to be there and what they're going to be certified and permitted to deal with? What type of animal? Excuse me, whether it be
Our goal,
mammal or reptilian?
right, our goal is to find somebody who's qualified to get, if they don't already have a Virginia permit, qualified with enough experience to be permitted by Virginia, that is qualified to rehab all species that are permissible by DWR. However, because it will be a new process to us, we're going to do a very soft opening and probably initially do birds, small mammals, maybe a few larger mammals, and not work with raptors for probably the first or second year. So we're going to make sure that we understand capacity and to make sure we have that covered.
When you say larger mammals, you're still not referring to anything larger than a fawn?
No, small mammals are usually considered maybe squirrels and possums. Larger mammals are, fox would be a larger mammal. A bobcat would be a larger mammal, although we don't intend to take bobcats for those first few years. And then a fawn would be a larger mammal.
That's all that I have at this time. Thank you.
We don't
Commissioner,
envision any elephants.
Sir?
I said we don't envision any elephants.
No elephants.
No elephants. That's a relief because they've been running wild in Caroline County. All right. Thank you very much. We will open a public hearing on this matter right now.
Thank you very
And
much for your.
you will have an opportunity to address us again if you so desire.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, sir, Mr. Colucci. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to open the public hearing on this matter. Is there anyone wishing to speak regarding this special exception? Please come forward, state your name and your voting district, please.
My name is Kevin Marshall. My voting district is actually Berkeley District in Spotsylvania County, but I'm a large landowner on the Edgehill Academy Road, right across the street from this facility. To make some headway on that, I've got 420 acres of rural preservation land right across the street from where this proposal is. The first thing I'd like to bring up to you is a technical issue that I've seen within this presentation from staff and with the Wildlife Rescue League. You're hearing a special use permit, but you've been presented by the Wildlife Rescue League a commercial rezoning. So we need to figure out which one we're doing. A special use permit within the rural preservation is not going to allow what they've asked for with a commercial. The gentleman mentioned having a resident live there. If you look at their website, there's no living space within that house for anyone to live there. The plan is to have it as a commercial use. It's got parking out front. It's a horrible set of plans. If you ask me, it doesn't have any handicap access. And if you're going to have a commercial use within your county, it's going to require a traffic impact analysis from VDOT, and that hasn't been presented to you. I'd like to point those things out because to me, technically, you're being presented two different things. One is a commercial rezoning, of course, one's an SUP. I'm against this project. We are farming. I'm not farming 80,000 chickens. I've got 420 acres of pine trees growing. That's where that piece of property has been for a long time, and continue to want to do that there. Edge Hill Academy Road is a very narrow road. It's used very often by folks on bicycles that like to ride through the country area there. That presents its own hazard. But that road right there and that bottom, it floods. About a quarter mile of that road is taken up by water 6 to 8 times a year. The entrance to this property is where VDOT will shut the road down at. Impassable, do not road close signs go up past this driveway when it floods in this bottom. The house is within a floodplain. I'm not as familiar with your rules and regulations here as I am with the ones in Spotsylvania County, but we taking and turning a residential structure into a commercial use within that floodplain. I'd question if you could do that or not. And that's what's been presented to you by the applicant, as operating a commercial business, even though it's a 501c3. You're looking at renovating a residential home, building a new structure, and having what looks to me about 300 yards of pens through this area. It's a huge, I believe it was stated 500 animals a year. The Washington Zoo only has 2,200. That's a lot of animals coming in and out. So, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else wishing to speak?
Good evening. Chris Hawkins, Port Royal District. I'm speaking on behalf of my family. My family owns the 100-acre piece directly to the south of the property there. So not only on that behalf, but also in regards to a couple separate corporations that own large tracts of land in the area right there as well. Edge Hill Academy basically is a unlined, sparsely maintained, heavily traveled traffic area already with a lot of impact. If you haven't been there when 95 North backs up, that's the favored route for GPS. So it's already a challenge on that road. I don't even like my kids driving on that road, to be honest with you. To pass 2 lanes of traffic is something else. And to add a commercial entrance in there, traffic-wise, is going to be a negative impact, let alone the drainage impact on the river just south of the entrance that they've got proposed as well. I think further information needs to be looked at in regards to that. Also, I'm here on behalf of Berkeley Hunt Club. We are a local sportsman's club based in the immediate area here, and we either own, lease, or have rights to about 2,000 contiguous acres encircling this exact location here, and we do hunt with dogs. So I see this as a possible cultural clash at some point. Not that we're opposed to what they do and what they want to do. I'm all for that. I mean, by all means, we love their product that they put out, but I can see there to be a conflict in that immediate area. I don't know that this is the best location in Caroline County for this direct purpose. And, we would speak vehemently against that. Members of the corporation are all landowners in the area. We kind of got caught off guard with this meeting here tonight in order of getting prepared for that. But believe you me, for the next steps, we'll be ready to present ourselves a little more accordingly against this. Part of what we do also is, as Sportsman's Club, we offset the cost to farmers for leasing, for tree farms, to offset taxes, property taxes, to maintain them there. It's getting hard enough to farm as it is, and you move out revenue sources for them, it's going to make it harder in the long run for them as well. So that's something to be cognitive of and thoughtful of in regards also. I think it's going to be an eyesore also to put those running cages right off of Edge Hill Academy Road. That's going to be visible to that. It's going to look, for lack of a better term, like a petting zoo right there as well. So for us that live in the area and the neighbors that live in the area, we've spoken to pretty much everyone in the area, and we haven't found anybody. Are you awake over there? Okay.
I'm right.
We haven't found anybody in support of the project yet either. Like I said, we got it caught off guard a little bit with this meeting here, but we will be a little bit more prepared on the next go around. But we are vehemently against the project in that area there. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak? And yes, Mr. Hawkins, we're all awake.
I'll address that later.
Good evening, gentlemen
Good evening,
and
ma'am.
ladies. Donna Smith, Action Spotsylvania County and Bowdoin Berkeley District. I'm owner of properties on both sides of this and actually directly across the street from it. My land, it's been my understanding that we couldn't develop on it because it's in the flood plan. So what we've done over the years with our property has grown timber, as well as hunting on it too, and on it. All of that there on both sides of the road, going and coming, is in the flood plan. I don't have a picture. They had pretty pictures up there, but I've actually seen water in that yard, through that driveway up to that house that they want to put this facility in. So you need to do a tiny bit more research on that if you want to. What I'm asking you tonight is to vote no on it. And if it goes any further, the next time, the majority of my family will be here. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And just for the record, so that everyone knows, the Planning Commission only makes a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. The final decision is up to the Board of Supervisors. Okay? Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
My name is James Hart, Madison District. I live on Page Road. My parents own the farm across the river on the same side of this property. My biggest concern is the road and the water. That's a wooden bridge. It's been a wooden bridge for what, 30 years, 40 years, if not longer. And it's just, I don't know if it's going to be, there's a lot of people coming in there. The traffic is already horrible on that road from the Thorn traffic, construction going on in Thornburg. Everybody cuts through there. And they're going to be responsible for if some of these animals get out and they come over and kill my mother's 25 chickens, they're going to be responsible for that amount or replacing those chickens. They're going to put cages, and just as well as I do, a wild animal will get out of a cage. And I think somebody should be there 24/7 if they're going to have animals on site. She said they won't to start with. I really think if you're going to have a sick animal there, somebody needs to be there to take care of that animal. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Anyone else wishing to speak, please come forward. Anyone else wishing to speak regarding this matter? Seeing no one coming forward, the public hearing is now closed.
I have some more questions.
Yeah, do you want Mr. Colucci or Ms. Axelrod or Mr. Pennington?
Both, the Wildlife League and Mr. Pennington.
Right.
I can start with Mr. Pennington.
Yeah, let's go with Mr. Pennington first, please.
And we'll drill
That might
him
clear
first.
up some issues.
Okay, so this backs up to the data center, correct?
Yes.
Which is commercial.
It's Planned Innovation, Research, and Technology.
Okay. And so is commercial permitted by special exception on this property?
The zoning ordinance defines an animal clinic or veterinary hospital as a facility that takes care of animals. It does not specify between domestic animals or wild animals. The animal clinic and veterinary hospital is defined as a special exception use in the RP district. And so this would not be a rezoning. This would be a special exception request in the RP district as an animal clinic and veterinary hospital to care for wild animals. And so it would not be a zoning change. It would be a special use permit on 13 acres of the 94 acres.
So is there a requirement that somebody be there 24/7?
There's not a requirement that someone be there 24/7. What was stated is from the building official is if someone does reside there 24/7, then the building official must call this a residence.
Okay.
But the building use code does not have to match the zoning use code per the state code. And so should this special exception be approved for zoning purposes, it would be a commercial aspect of the rural preservation property with a special exception permit. For the building code, the building official would still need to call the structure a residence.
Okay. So someone does not have to be there 24/7 and does not have to be zoned commercial to operate. Is that what you're telling
The
me?
zoning doesn't have to change at all.
Okay.
The person being there 24/7 or not is not going to determine the zoning use classification. It's going to determine the building use classification.
Okay.
If someone is residing there from the beginning, 24 hours, 7 days a week, then the building building official must call the structure a residence.
Okay.
If they're not from the beginning, if they're not going to have someone living there 24/7, and an initial phase is employees coming on a daily or hourly basis, then the building official cannot call it a residence and would have to call it a commercial use. And then the regulations for the house would change. It would have to be upgraded to commercial purposes for the interior of the house. And then if somebody came in afterwards, the building code would call it a residence, but it would have already been upgraded. So it depends on how the applicant utilizes the structure as to what the building code is going to call it versus a residence versus a commercial structure.
Okay.
The zoning code, if a special exception is approved, it would be a commercial area on the rural preservation property.
Okay. And so tell us what you're recommending tonight in the packet that you gave us.
I'm not sure, what do you mean?
You're not recommending residential or commercial?
So we don't have a recommendation. It's the zoning ordinance and the building code that dictates that. So for zoning purposes, a special exception allows for commercial use on residential property.
Okay.
So the special exception would allow for commercial use on the residential property that is zoned rural preservation.
Okay,
at
I
the
get you
animal
now.
clinic and veterinary hospital that is allowed as a special exception.
Special exemption on residential property.
Correct. For the building code, it depends on how the applicant utilizes the property. If someone resides there from the beginning of operation, the building code has to call it a residence. If somebody is not residing there from the beginning of operation and is daily use, then the building code has to call it a commercial structure, and they would have to upgrade the structure from its current state to be able to commence operation in that capacity.
Okay. But either one is permitted. It just has to go through the proper process here.
Right. The house could be a residence or it could be a commercial structure, depending on how the applicant utilizes the structure from the beginning of operation.
Okay. And I think that's the only questions I have for you.
Craig, I had some questions about the flooding. We don't have anything concrete that shows, where the water's gone to and how far it's gone up to the house or any of that, right?
So we contacted VDOT and asked for a statement regarding the road flooding, how often it happens, how often they have to shut it down. We did not receive any response from VDOT from that email. For the house, again, there was a violation in the file that the house was built in the floodplain and flooding was occurring, but the follow-up on the violation was not in the file and it's not clear how it was followed up back then. And so after the building official looked at the file, so the building official would have to look at the house, should there be any upgrades or permits required to verify the flood elevation. But without getting a phone call, the property's flooding, we don't have any information in any files as to how high the water level gets or any historical knowledge of that.
Fair enough.
Can we require, this property to be behind trees or is it already screened? Can we require screening?
You can condition screening, yes. That's up to the planning
I
commission.
mean, even if it's operating on residential property,
The special exception allows you to create conditions.
conditions
Yeah,
like
and so
screening.
you may condition that. It's not a requirement, but should the planning commission and board condition any type of screening, then that would have to be complied with by the applicant.
And how far off the road is it? Do you know, Mr. Penning?
The house itself is not that far off the road,
Okay.
maybe 600-700 feet.
Okay. One of the things that we might need to do too is take a look at the property before making a decision. So that the staff could set that up if the applicant is open to that.
Yes, staff can set that up if you'd like to make a site visit.
And the applicant is shaking their heads, they're open to that. That's my thoughts at this point.
So, Mr. Pennington, so the total acreage, so based on the commercial part of it that you were saying, as far as the building, if it was to be done as commercial, the total acreage would also be, what part of the footprint of the total property, the 90-some acres, would be commercial?
The special exception is for approximately 13.5 acres.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
Brother,
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Chairman, respectfully, I just, I think I need to make a comment in reference to the gentleman earlier. Wanted to know if I was asleep or not. At the beginning of the meeting, in my prayer, I asked for everybody to be respectful to each other. And I'm attempt to be respectful to that gentleman who made that statement. But, I was taking notes, as I normally do, keeping a tally of people against and for amendment or a zoning request. I heard that you was with the Berkeley Hunt Club. I heard that you paid taxes to a lot of those farmers. So I was paying attention to you, sir. So I just wanted to let you know that today I did go by that property and to look at it. And I saw the water. I saw the dirt stuff still on the road. I drove over the little bridge. So just to let you know that I was involved in the request of everybody here today.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Axelrod, I have one question, if you would mind, please. I just want to make sure that I heard correctly when you spoke before. And that is that initially, you do not have anyone who is going to be residing there. Is that correct?
We would be very fortunate if we hired somebody that was willing to live at the property.
Yes, ma'am. Is that a yes or a no? I'm not trying to put you in a box.
Right.
But I want to
We
make
do
sure
not
that
know
I-
that we'll have somebody that is able to live there when we first open. That is correct.
So you will have someone in residence who,
No, I'm saying we do not know that we will
not
have
know. Okay.
somebody in residence
Very
there when we'd like to open.
thank you so much. I
I
appreciate
have a question for you while you're up here. So if somebody is living there, because I know most wildlife rehabilitation takes place in someone's home. If someone is living there, and this maybe Mr. Pennington has to tell me too, I know they have to be a permitted wildlife rehabber. So, do they apply to Caroline County to rehab in their home, Mr. Pennington? Because I know we have them in the area.
So we do not have any certified rehabbers in Caroline County. There is one in Spotsylvania, 3 in Stafford, 1 in Louisa. There are some in surrounding counties. After consulting with the county attorney, it depends on what the primary use of the property is. And so if someone resides there and that's the main use of the property, and they rehab animals on the side here and there, then that would be considered an accessory use and they would not have to come to us. If the primary use of the property is to rehab animals, then they would need to get this animal clinic and veterinary hospital special exception in the RP zoning district.
Okay. So someone could live there and rehab animals if there was a resident. But I know we're talking about something different. We're talking about, put a veterinarian there and things like that. But a person could live there and do this as a resident.
It would depend on an investigation as to what the primary use of the structure is versus what an accessory use to the structure is.
But I'm saying if it's a resident, not.
If somebody lived in a house for 20 years and they still used it as just a house and they rehabbed 1 or 2 animals a year, then that would be considered an accessory use.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Maybe I can clarify. Mr. Colucci, would you please tell us who holds the deed to this property?
The Federation,
So then it is not set up as a residence. It is set up as a wildlife refuge center.
well, but I think it's not that it matters because I think it's
It matters
irrelevant.
to me, sir.
Well, the question is, it's the fee title to the property is in the name of the Federation because it was a donation to the Federation. But someone could be a resident. For instance, they could rent it to me and I could live there.
I agree.
But no, the fee title is in the name of the,
I concur.
correct.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Colucci. I appreciate that. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I would make a recommendation that we defer this matter pending a site visit. And I'll put that in the form of a motion.
I would second.
Motion by the chair, seconded by the vice chair. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it unanimously. Yes, here we go.
No, there is technically rebuttal time if you want that. It's been deferred. It's up to you all.
No, that's right. We'll deal with it on the deferral.
Okay, that's
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I think Mr. Pennington has the contact information for Beth. So you want
Mr. Pennington is our concierge when it comes to matters like
well,
this.
so he can make arrangements
Great.
to have whoever wants to look at the property, look at it.
Thank you, Mrs. Axelrod.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Mr. Colucci.
I appreciate your help.
Y'all have a good evening, but drive carefully.
sorry. Just to clarify, was there a date that it was postponed to this matter?
It will be
Next,
deferred until our next regular meeting.
Regular meeting. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Just wanted to.
Do we have an option? Does it have to be the next meeting? I mean, we can,
No, it
once
does
the
not. It does-
commission can determine on when we bring it back.
Correct. A recommendation should be made within 100 days, but it doesn't have to be the next meeting technically.
Okay.
Did we vote on that?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
It was unanimous. We want to do a site visit.
I know we were all saying yes and.
Wake up, girl.
Well, I knew we did, but I just wanted to know if it was official.
All
Because we
right,
didn't do the,
Mr. Pennington,
Yes, so your first item under any and all matters is the Chapter 9 Comprehensive Plan of Transportation. In 2021, the George Washington Regional Commission drafted a small area bicycle and pedestrian plan for the Ladysmith area for Caroline County. This plan provided bicycle and pedestrian accommodations along Route 1 from Campbell's Creek subdivision south to the Lake Caroline subdivision, and along Ladysmith Road from the Lake Landor subdivision across Route 1 to Madison Elementary School. The plan also provided connectivity to the surrounding subdivisions of Ladysmith Village, Pendleton, Bridlewood, South Village, and the Ladysmith Industrial Park. The plan included shared use paths along two major,
Excuse me, folks. Please, would you please? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
The plan included shared use paths from two major roadways and a combination of paths and sidewalks throughout the subdivisions. Should this plan be incorporated into the comprehensive plan, the improvements can be required as development occurs or as road improvements are implemented by VDOT. The plan calls for safety improvements such as crosswalks, flashing caution lights, and pedestrian refuge islands at roadway crossings and pedestrian access to major shopping areas in the Ladysmith Small Area Plan. The Ladysmith Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan was presented to the Planning Commission in October of 2021. The plan never moved forward as a public hearing due to the volume of public hearing cases during that time frame. Staff is reintroducing the Ladysmith Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan to the Planning Commission as it should be adopted into the comprehensive plan. The improvements for the bicycle and pedestrian accommodations can be required as development continues throughout the Ladysmith corridor. The plan has been included in your packet for reference. This is the presentation that the George Washington Regional Commission provided for the Planning Commission on October 28th, 2021. This is a high-level overview of the bike and pedestrian plan. What we're requesting is authorization for public hearing at one of your future meetings. So the study area was Ladysmith, Virginia. It's roughly 10,000 residents. It's one of the Caroline County's fastest growing areas. The residential and commercial locations are generally less than 2.5 miles apart in this area. There's no real biking or walking infrastructure to speak of outside of the housing developments. The Ladysmith Community Plan, circa 2008, called for a village development with a walkable character. Caroline's Comprehensive Plan, adopted in 2010, called for interconnectivity between neighborhoods and other developments. The existing conditions, most of the population is in two clusters, while most of the destinations are either within Founders Park at Ladysmith Village or at the intersection of US 1 and Ladysmith Road. Neither road has sidewalks, but desire lanes are present, and pedestrians were observed walking on US Route 1. Can you go back one? Just to let you know, desire lines are where people are walking on the grass and have created a dirt path because there's that many foot traffic in that area, just to clear up a definition. Well, I guess my thing is working. Sorry, Leon. All right. To show what's possible, Ladysmith was separated into sub-areas. The distances mapped from residential developments to likely destinations along roadways as if sidewalks and shared use paths existed. So this is the overall plan where you can see Campbell's Creek to the north. You can see the Ladysmith intersection labeled as the retail area with the food line, and then west down Ladysmith Road to South River. Here you see the farthest housing developments are a short bike ride away from the heart of Ladysmith's growing amenities. And it's difficult to see when you're by car, but everything really is somewhat close. As you can see the Pendleton neighborhood backing up to the Lake Landor neighborhood and Lake Caroline neighborhoods there in that general area. The recommendations from the GWRC plan would be placemaking and wayfinding signage, a shared use path network, sidewalk network, safe well-lit crossings at appropriate places, and pedestrian refuge medians included in upcoming road widenings. The placemaking through signs, gateway signage, such as when you get to the town of Ashland, show travelers that they've arrived to a destination area. Along with the signage, it helps to slow drivers down and make them aware of potential pedestrians and cyclists. So the shared use path network on a high level view again goes from Campbell's Creek down Route 1 all the way to the Pendleton subdivision. And then you can see Madison Elementary School on the far right of the screen and the paths running all the way over to Lake Landor, which is shown off of the screen to the west side. The high-speed, high-volume rural roadways of Route 1 are best suited for off-road bike and pedestrian infrastructure. instead of bike lanes directly on Route 1. This shows the safe, well-lit crossings. You've got your crosswalk, overhead lighting, stop line for cars. It's a much safer than a traffic signal where you'll get flashing lights when pedestrians or bicyclists show up and push the button to cross the road there for safety. And this shows a pedestrian refuge median where pedestrians can cross one side of the road and wait until the other side of the road is clear. They should be 8 feet wide just to accommodate cyclists. If multiple cyclists end up in the median at the same time. This is an example of a pedestrian refuge. And so this is the overall map of recommendations for the Ladysmith Village area. Again, you can see Ladysmith Village to the north, all the way down to Pendleton, Lake Caroline, Lake Landor to the south and the west, and across 95 to Madison Elementary School in the east. And so next steps after the commission, we would request that you authorize public hearing for this for one of your future meetings. Should you guys approve it or deny it, then it would go to the Board of Supervisors for ultimate approval or denial and into the comp plan. And that concludes the presentation. Are there any questions that I could answer?
Yes. So this was done in 2021. So before we brought it to the public for a public hearing, do we think that? I mean, I saw some things in here that probably, I don't know if it would be warranted to even have it in there now. I guess that's my question. Should this be looked over to see if there's anything in it that's not applicable now versus in 2021? I look, well, for one, you know, the pathway, which it wasn't a lot in there about that, but coming down to Bull Church Road, I don't, you know, if we put data centers down there, I don't think, and the only thing there is the school. So I don't know if it's even warranted to have a bicycle walking path over the interstate just to go to where we're planning on or proposing to have data centers at. So that was one thing in it that I saw that I didn't know if it would even be worth considering in the plan.
So, Mr. Rollins, I can speak directly to that. So I would say, yes, it is. I mean, the county just spent $26 million to upgrade 639 from Route 1 up to 95. Currently, there's a STAR study that's being conducted by VDOT to look at improving the bridge and the interchange. And so the data centers in that area, you know, as they come, they would be employment centers. And so you have a high density residential, you know, within walking distance of this area. We have a school there. And so it would certainly, it does make a lot of sense to continue the pedestrian connections across 95. And the reason, like Craig stated, that we want these in the plan is so that when developers do come along and propose something, then it gives us an additional tool to request some assistance in getting some of those things put in. And also, as VDOT looks at the road and say the STAR study proceeds, then they will see that the county has in their plan pedestrian accommodation and bike accommodation. So this is one of the steps that we take to assist in strengthening applications for transportation funding.
Okay.
But I would agree with you. We probably do need to look to see if there's anything that may not be relevant, because it's possible. But
I tried to read it and interpret as best I could. So what are the triggers? What would happen within that area that would trigger us to proceed with doing some of the things that's in the plan?
Sure. There are a couple of triggers that could happen. So one thing that could happen is you could have a developer propose a project. And so as a part of that project, a way for them to potentially mitigate some of their impacts to the area would be to contribute to install a portion of some of these improvements, particularly along roadways. If a project came in and they had to do road improvements and they proffered to make those road improvements as a part of their project, those are dollars that are saved by the county and those improvements are put in by the developers. Another scenario would be if the STAR study gets approved and that goes forward, then there's additional support there for VDOT to include those improvements as a part of those improvements. Another scenario could be some generous donor decided they wanted to give the county some money or something, and we have a plan to say, hey, we have a particular place that we can use these funds to help put these pedestrian accommodations in. These are improvements that are, I see them as life safety and quality of life issues. We have a significant amount of pedestrian traffic in this area right now. It's dangerous. Within the last 2 years, we've had 2 pedestrians hit and 2 fatalities on Route 1. And so, the comp plan called for Ladysmith to maintain its village feel and its walkability. And you saw there by the distances shown in the diagrams, and this is a very walkable area. And what needs to be in place are the infrastructure to accommodate that. And so, that's kind of leads to why it's necessary. And those could be triggers to getting those improvements done. I'm sorry.
And I guess, I saw the signage that showed, like welcoming people into Ashland. So why wouldn't we do something like that now, as far as the signage?
We can do something like that now. It is a matter of many competing needs in the county. And so oftentimes, signage and welcoming signs are not necessarily high priority. And so it is a matter of us bringing this to the forefront and saying, hey, asking the board to set aside some dollars to do that.
Because that might welcome some businesses into that area. They'll see that we are welcoming community in Ladysmith. So I just wanted to throw that out. So
If I'm not mistaken, there is a sign right there by the Exxon that says something about Ladysmith and it's, what we have on the table. I can't remember specifically. It might got knocked over during, the construction phases over there, but I know that I've seen it. And having grown up in the northern town, we had sidewalks everywhere. I mean, I honestly would tell you, I rode my bicycle across many, many sidewalks by many, many businesses, and I felt very, very safe. So
I'm not against it. I mean, I think it's needed. It's needed, and it looks good too. So that's all the questions I have.
I had a few questions. Just to make sure I'm reading everything correctly. But I couldn't figure out the total mileage. Is it in here somewhere? The whole circle. It's a circle, right?
Yeah. So there isn't a total mileage of trails and sidewalks listed in this plan.
Okay.
What it says is it encompasses approximately a 2.5 mile area.
Okay. And so some of it is sidewalks, some of it is asphalt, some of it's, are the trails going to be asphalt or some kind of?
It depends. So,
Okay.
So it depends. Along the major roadways such as Ladysmith Road and Route 1, then it would be a paved shared use path type 10.
Right on the side of the road, correct?
Just off of the side of the road. But
Yeah, where a bike or a person.
yes. But the plan also shows trails and walkways that interconnect the neighborhoods, such as Ladysmith Village to South River and South Village and Pendleton and Lake Caroline and Lake Landor. And so those trails that would provide the interconnectivity for community residents to traverse the neighborhoods without going onto major roads, those trails may be of different material.
And last question, we don't know total cost yet, right?
So
Where are various funds coming from? We got some idea on that, correct?
Well, so hopefully if we incorporate this into the comprehensive plan, then when VDOT makes road improvements, they have to make the road improvements in cooperation with our comprehensive plan. So if this was in the comprehensive plan and VDOT wanted to widen Route 1, then they would put in the shared use path. If on the other side, developers such as Mr. Rollins brought up the age-restricted case at the corner of Route 1 and 639 that hasn't come to you yet, but will soon. Should this be in the comprehensive plan, then it would allow us to talk to them about putting these shared use paths in at their cost when they develop the neighborhood.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right. Now, gaps in the path would require county to acquire easements and possibly build portions of it themselves. But it's not a project that's looked at as the county purchasing easements and building the paths all on our own. The county would try to fill the gaps in the trails and the paths as the development and the road widening projects occur around that area.
I mean, Ms. Horton, like I said, a lot of these projects that happen this way happen as a result of developers doing their portion of the project when something happens. So you may see a portion of a trail or a sidewalk for several years that dead ends, and you come back a few years later, and then that trail or sidewalk continues because development has occurred, and everyone is paying their fair share towards the infrastructure.
Yeah, that's what you see around Fredericksburg, in Fredericksburg and on the outskirts in the counties.
Mm-hmm.
So I figured that's the way it was going to go, but I just needed it validated.
And,
Make sure I was thinking correctly.
You are correct.
Mr. Hughes, I think all you need is authorization for a public hearing on the comp plan amendment. Is that correct, sir?
That is correct, sir.
All right, sir. You need that in the form of a motion, I would assume?
Yes, sir.
All right, sir. I so move that we authorize the planning department to hold a public hearing regarding comp plan amendment.
I will second that.
Motion by the chair, second by vice chair. Any further discussion? There being no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Authorization is done, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So your next item on your any and all matters is a discussion on a initiated text amendment that the commission initiated on December 19th of 2024. It was to amend the zoning ordinance to enumerate private schools and in the RP district and also in the RR district, and to develop new definitions for schools and educational uses, and also potentially amend the listing of schools in the R2 district. And just as a little history, we brought this to you and requested initiation of the amendment, and we noted at that time that we would bring to you some items for consideration. And so that's what we're doing tonight, is bringing you some definitions and ordinance changes for the commission's consideration. So, and that's all this is tonight. This is not a public hearing. And so we'd like to get your feedback, take that back and prepare it and put it in a formal document, and then bring it for public hearing. So currently, our private school definition is, as you see it on the screen, it says it's a bona fide educational institution other than a public school that provides instruction which is equivalent to public school education to public school age children, and which may involve boarding of pupils who, in the ordinary course of events, return annually to the homes of their parents or guardian not less than 2 months of summer vacation. That is our current definition of private schools in our zoning ordinance. Right now, private school is not an enumerated use in any district in Caroline County. So we have a definition, we just don't have anywhere in the ordinance where it is an allowed use, either permitted by right or by special exception. So definitions for consideration. as we were talking about this, we didn't want to just open up a school's definition because as I'll show you in a minute, our ordinance does have a definition of schools, but it has an enumerated use for schools, but it does not have a definition. And so as we were thinking about this, we did not want to create a scenario where we allowed, say, a school use, a private school or something to come in that may be objectionable. And so that's why we came up with the term educational uses. And we got with our county attorney and came up with some language for educational use. Within it has two types, an indoor and outdoor. And so an educational use will be a use providing education or instruction in any branch of knowledge, including but not limited to schools of art, business, dance, theater, music, culture, and the martial arts. This use is comprised of two types, more particularly defined herein. This use does not include public facilities, private schools, or trade, technical, or vocational schools as defined. So you would have within this definition educational use indoor, which is an educational use which all instruction, practice, demonstration, and other related activities are conducted entirely within a building. Then you would have educational use outdoor as an educational use in which all or part of the instruction, demonstration, practice, or other related activities are conducted outdoors or outside of a building. And then lastly, as I noted, we have schools enumerated as a use, but not defined in our ordinance. And so we included here, schools would include public facilities and private schools. So currently in our zoning ordinance, this is how the uses are allowed. So in our rural preservation district, which is a 10-acre minimum lot size, public facilities are by right. And for clarification, public schools are defined within the term public facilities. So also in our rural residential 2 and 5 districts, you have public facilities as a by right use, and the lot sizes there range from 2 to 5 acres. Then in our R1, R2, and R3 district, currently the use is enumerated as schools as a by right use. And as I noted, right now, there's no definition of what schools are. So objectionable use type school could right now go into one of those districts as a by right use as a school. So that's what one of the things we're attempting to correct with this proposal. So in our planned residential PRD district, schools are by right. In the PMUD district, schools are by right. In the planned shopping center district, public facilities are by right, hence public schools are by right. Planned industrial park, schools are by right use. Planned recreational and entertainment center, public facilities are by right. In the PERT district, educational uses are by right. Trade, outdoor, are by special use. In the M1 district, you have tech, trade, and vocational schools, indoor and outdoor right now. And in our B district, you have no schools or public facilities, trade or vocational schools are permitted at all. So they're not an enumerated use in our B district. So the proposed allowances are that private schools would be by right in the RP and RR districts that currently allow schools. So it would be similar for both public and private schools in accordance with our definition of private school. And then educational uses indoor would be a by right in the business district. And then educational outdoor as a special use would be a special use in the rural preservation and RR districts. And so those are kind of the proposals that we are bringing to you for your consideration. And as I noted, this is an attempt to, one, create some clarity in the ordinance, two, create the allowance by treating like uses the same, and creating definitions to prevent any objectionable uses from coming along in the county, and also creating definitions that may more aptly apply to some type of educational function happening or may want to happen in Caroline. So, because we have limited definitions related to those types of uses right now. So I'm happy to answer any questions and take your comments or suggestions.
Can you go back one screen? Okay, now go back to your last one. So educational youth outdoors, so a truck driving school would have to have a special exception. When you say special use, you're saying special exception, right?
Yes.
So a truck driving school would have to have a special exception in RP and RR,
Correct.
but not in industrial. Go back to the next page, previous page. So M1, they would need a special exception.
Correct. So right now we have a definition for vocational school, indoor, outdoor.
Okay.
And I'd have to look to see where truck driving school might fall, but it very well could fall in that vocational school definition, and it would be a by right use in the M1 district right now.
Could it also fall under a trade school?
I'd have to look at the definition of trade school. It's possible.
Just throwing some work out for you to do. I mean,
That's why we're here. I mean, that is exactly why we're here. But I would say if it would happen to be in the industrial district, that's where we probably the most appropriate place for something like that to be.
Are current schools grandfathered?
Our current schools are by right uses, so they are allowed uses. They don't have to be.
I mean, you've already got a few of these things in existence.
A few of these things, meaning public schools?
No, private schools.
We have one private school.
Near Ladysmith.
The Carmel School, yes.
Well, we have at least one on a farm, small.
Is it a homeschool?
Yeah, basically. But I mean, there are groups of kids attending there, and they already are permitted.
I'd have to know how they were
Peace
permitted.
Rains Farm, I think it's, or not Peace Rains, but Peace Farm or something like.
Piece of Earth?
Peace what?
Piece of Earth?
Might be called that. Something near Ladysmith.
Piece of Earth.
I saw that.
They're already permitted, and so.
They're not permitted.
Website.
Or they're under, okay, well, what I'm saying is, are they grandfathered or they need to apply for the new regulations?
They need to apply for a special exception permit right now in our ordinance as a rural outdoor recreation facility.
Okay.
And forgive me, don't quote me on that title, but it's rural outdoor recreation commercial is what it is.
Okay, and that's the only one we think we have?
That's the only one that we know of. And that's a prime example of a type of use that we don't truly have they fit in that definition, but that is not what that definition was intended to define. So if someone came along, the educational use definition that we've come up with would be a more appropriate definition.
Okay, and we used to have a dance school, but I think that went under during COVID. Yeah, so we don't have any more dance or karate or gymnastics schools that would be grandfathered or whatever?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
All right, sir, what do you need from us regarding the proposed zoning ordinance text amendment?
So really what we need is if you all have any thoughts or suggestions to provide them to us, or if you are satisfied with what you see here, say so, and we will bring it back, for a public hearing. And I will say, as staff get together and talk about these things, sometimes we run through a bunch of different scenarios and we may see something that say, oh, wait a minute, we might need to clean this up as well. So if we come back and you see an additional clarifying definition or change, that's what that would be about. But that's, really what we're trying to do is create some clarity to the ordinance, introduce some new definitions that are not there, and, really put the county in a much better position as it relates to those educational and school uses.
Let me request this. If we could see it in print and give us time to really delve into it, aside from seeing it on screen, I think that would help me a little bit more. I don't know about the rest of the commissioners. I know I raised the hackles on your neck a little bit when I asked about Carmel School and a special exception and so forth. But come to find out, as you stated, there's a Supreme Court decision that says you have to treat private schools the same as you do public. Did I understand you correctly, too?
So let me clarify that. I got with our attorneys, and it wasn't a Supreme Court case, but the Virginia Code does say you should not treat like uses differently. So public school and private school are like uses. And as you see, that's part of the reason for this exercise is to show you that public schools are essentially allowed in just about all of our districts as a by right use. We don't have any district where a public school is a special use. And so to make a private school, it's not to say that you couldn't, but it does create some potential issues. You don't have any districts where a public school is a special exception. And so if you created private schools as a special exception, you'd be treating a like use differently.
And I thought of some other schools we do have in the area, private schools. There's several preschools in churches and such. So
those uses are typically accessory uses to those uses. I mean,
accessory to already, there's a church there.
Accessory to the religious institution. So, but history, many of those are considered a part of a religious institution, which is a allowed use.
So they fall under a different ordinance.
Fall under the same ordinance. It's just a religious institution, and it's a
by right.
It's an ancillary use to that overarching use. It's a part of. It's very similar to the discussion you were having earlier tonight with the wildlife refuge. Is it a house or is it a commercial use? Well, it comes down to the fact. So how is it being used? Well, the primary use of a church is a church. A daycare facility is a ancillary use. And we have limited, outside of a religious institution, we have limited opportunity for daycares in this county because they are special exceptions. As you recall, several months ago, the commission heard one. So,
all right, so like I say, if you'll provide us that in print so we can print it out and mark all over it. And
so what I'll do, this will be your cheat sheet right here, so you don't have to go thumbing through the ordinance because this information is all in your ordinance. But you can use this slide right here as kind of your cheat sheet to kind of go through and look at the ordinance and quickly, so you know where those uses are identified in the ordinance. But we'll give you this for sure.
Yeah, and more likely than not, on our next regular meeting, we could probably put this on the agenda and dispose of it.
If you guys send us comments or suggestions, and we can advertise it for a public hearing with those suggestions included.
Okay.
So I had one question. I don't know if it's going to deal with this. So that so-called location in Ladysmith that was supposedly teachers was providing education to children. How would we look at that? Would that be a business? I mean, there's no certification or anything so if I chose to build I had a big barn or a big metal building and I'm teaching 100 children and and I'm using it as a business, but it's a so-called school. How do we regulate that, or can we?
Yeah. So right now, I mean, that's what's happening. I mean, that was brought to light in that particular situation. We had a conversation with the individuals, told them what the regulations are and how they could comply.
Okay.
So, like I stated, we don't, as today we stand here, we don't have a real good use in our ordinance that they truly fit into. We have a use that they match and that they can fit into, but if we create these educational uses, then someone could come in and apply. If it had an outdoor component, they could apply for an educational use as a special exception. And then that is a much more appropriate definition for them to be in. As we've proposed it, the karate school, the dance school, the piano school, the tax prep school, those would be by right uses in a B1 district. It's pretty common. If you go in many shopping centers today, you'll see the karate school, you'll see the tax prep school, you'll see the dance school, you'll see the barber and beauty school. Beyond the county regulations, you also have to understand that, there are state regulations for many of these operations and educational functions. And so there's additional scrutiny and regulation beyond the county zoning ordinance. The other issue that you raised is if someone was to build a structure, our ordinance is set up that you can't do any uses in this county without a site plan or a use permit. And so when those uses pop up, they have to come in and get a use permit. Well, that triggers a set of dominoes where now all of a sudden we have to be sure, one, that it meets the building code requirements, two, that it meets the zoning requirements. And so now there's another set of regulations that kick in. It's going back to the use earlier, the wildlife school. Sure, someone could go in there and start that business as a residence, but the minute that they file a permit to do any alterations and any interior alterations, electrical, plumbing, that requires a permit. So then that triggers additional scrutiny by the building official. And so now all of a sudden, when the building official goes in there and if they are ripping out walls and doing other things, it might become a change of use. And so now there's a different set of standards that they have to construct to. And that is with any use. Today you have a prime example, the daycare that was a used auto facility. They came in, they were going to renovate the place to be a daycare facility. Well, they had to go through a whole set of building code regulations to bring that building up to code to be used for that particular use. So, there's very little opportunity if the county is made aware of something for someone to do something that's not safe. And that's really the intent of the ordinances in the building code. It's about life safety.
You said something about getting back to the Ladysmith School. You told them something to do to comply with what they're doing.
Permit.
Okay. All right. So they've done that already?
They're in the process.
Okay. That's why I'm saying, is that permit going to be the same as this? I mean, or is there something new that they're going to have to comply with?
There's nothing new. They are probably going to be file an application for a rural commercial recreation use. I forget the exact term. I can look it up, but. Oh, okay. Wow.
Not an R1, 2, or 3 school by right?
No, ma'am. Because
Okay.
their property is owned RP.
All right. So they would be under the RP.
Yeah, what you see here are by right uses. So you don't see uses that are allowed by special exception.
Okay. So that one's a special exception, you're saying?
It would be a special exception.
Okay.
But it wouldn't be included in this list because they would be applying for a rural recreation commercial facility.
Okay.
Not a school, or not one of the definitions that we've proposed, because it doesn't exist. They can only apply for what exists. And so we're kind of saying we've got this definition that you sort of fit with, so that's what you need to apply for.
So were we saying we're not taking any action on this tonight? We want a hard copy first?
Yeah, there's no action to be taken tonight. This is just discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll come back and we'll
When we
still
have a hard
public
copy,
hearing.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then we'll put it to a hearing.
So I need a point of clarification.
But I mean, tonight, do you need us to tell you can advertise public hearing?
You've already done that. You did that on December 19th.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So I just want to clarify, when you say hard copy, is an electronic copy or hard copy, or do you want us to see
Print.
you?
It'll be a hard copy when we print it out.
Okay, electronic that
Yeah,
we can
that's-
print out. Okay, that's fine.
I just wanted to clarify, because, yeah. I'm happy to do either. I just want to be sure tomorrow morning, you can have it probably by 9 o'clock.
Actually, for me, because the outreach email is not real compatible with my devices. If somebody could bring me a hard, when they're going past, because I'm right off route too, that would be easier for me.
However we can accommodate you, we are happy to do so.
Yeah, just drop off a hard copy, be easier for me.
Okay.
I think that's all, Mr. Hughes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Unless the commissioners, yes, sir.
I have a question about that, wildlife thing. Can we talk? No? Okay.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
That is it.
Okay. Any and all matters. Mr. Pennington, you have anything?
No, sir. That concludes any and all matters. We don't have anything else to bring in front of you this evening.
All right. Commissioners, I would like to mention, we have a vacancy on the Transportation Committee since Mr. Weber decided to bail out on us. We do need someone to fill his seat. Quite honestly, my plate is full. I've got 4 different things I work on. Mr. Williams, he's full, but I would like to ask Mr. Rollins and Dr. Horton to consider serving on the Transportation Committee. It's a non-pay slot, but we are requested by the Board of Supervisors to have 2 members participate. So if you would just give us some consideration on it. Yes, sir.
And just for your deliberation, it meets the first Wednesday of each month in this building at 6:30.
Thank you, sir.
I do have another meeting on that.
Okay.
Sorry, and my plate is extremely full.
All right.
Note that 6:30.
Yes, sir.
And you look like a great candidate.
Mr. Rollins, are you willing to take that on, sir? And if you don't want to give a decision right now, that's understandable. Let's just table it until you have a chance.
I'll let you know within 48 hours. Is that good enough?
Very good, sir. Thank you. We appreciate it. Anything else by the commissioners? Is there a motion to adjourn till our March 27th, 2025 meeting?
So moved.
So moved by Dr. Horton,
Seconded.
seconded by Mr. Williams. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned.